Today, it's a new series on ATP, Israel versus Palestine. Whose land is it anyway? Separating fact from fiction. Stay tuned. Well, hello again, everyone. Ed Walsh here at Appointed to Promote, where I always cover for you current events via the biblical lens. And today, I look to bring to you the beginning of a new series of episodes on one of the hottest hot-button topics in the world geopolitically today, of which is the showdown for land between that of the Jewish state of Israel and the Islamic Palestinian people. For given all we hear and see today about the Jewish nation, from the news media to that of the United Nations, to college campuses, and to even faith leaders alike, the propaganda machine that it is today heavily favors the Palestinian cause. Therefore, I figure it's time in this series to expose fact from fiction in what it is we hear and see in the world today. And I will do so in this series historically, archaeologically, and yes, per my program's motto, biblically. So with that said, let's get down to business, of which today's first narrative I look to expose is: what is Palestine and when did they become a nation? For the land I speak of today is a small strip of land the size of the state of New Jersey and represents just 0.1% of the entire landmass of the Middle East. And yet, it is the most watched, sought after, and might I add, fought over strip of land in the entire world. And it was on May the 14th of 1948 when the Jewish nation was reborn. Yet today, these so-called Palestinians and many surrounding Arab countries say that Israel has no claim to the land and that they are simply occupiers who have thus stolen it. And more to come on that specific topic in part 2 of my series. Now, as for the word Palestine, it comes out of the Egyptian and Hebrew word Pelesheph, and it's usually translated as Philistia, and roughly translated to mean rolling or migratory. For the term was also used to describe the ancient inhabitants of the land to the northeast of Egypt, that being the Philistines, and who often fought Israel over land claims, and were known for their advanced weaponry and war-fighting tactics, but also for their moral depravity and uncivility as well. And gee, where have I heard that one before? Now, the word Palestine itself is found only once in the Bible, that being in the book of Joel chapter 3 and verse 4, and only in the King James Version, while all other translations refer to it as Philistia. Meanwhile, in Isaiah chapter 14 verses 29 and 31, it is referred to as Palestina in the KJV, while all other translations refer to it as the Philistines. And note this, that the words Palestine, Philistine, and Philistia do not appear even one single time in the Quran. So, just as the Palestinians do claim that Israel stole the land in 1948, wouldn't it seem logical to understand that this Palestinian nation would have already have had to exist? And that as a nation? So if Palestine's claims that Israel stole the land in 1948 are correct, then it seems logical the only way they could make such a claim is to have already been a standing and sovereign nation beforehand. Yet the honest answer as to when Palestine became a nation, well, whether it be historically or biblically, the answer is the same, and that would be never. Until on November 15th, 1988, the Palestine National Council declared the establishment of the State of Palestine in Algiers, and that was despite no recognition from any other global governing body. For it was just recently, in June of 2024. For that was when the state of Palestine was recognized as a sovereign state by just over 75% of all United Nations members. And it had been a non-member observer state of the UN General Assembly since 2012. Now today, whether you refer to the land in question as either Palestine or Israel, the facts are that an estimated 25,000 archaeological sites are in a country that is made up of only 22,145 square meters of land. For every day, they uncover finds such as Hezekiah's royal seal, the tomb and fortress of King Herod, a second temple ancient mikvah, a curse tablet from the 13th century BC that uses the name Yahweh from Exodus chapter 3, and don't forget about the Dead Sea Scrolls, with many of the oldest dated biblical texts ever found. And the point, my friends, here I look to make is that none of these archaeological finds have ever confirmed a Palestinian state. Ever. Yet every one of them confirms a Jewish state. That state being Israel, as well as the history of Israel, as well as the people of Israel, and as well as the God of Israel, which also goes on to confirm for us the very stories of the Bible and therefore the very validity of the Bible itself. And what this also does confirm is that the Palestinians' claims to the land are both baseless and false. And finally, in speaking of ancient history, it is secular historical records itself that tell us that prior to 135 AD, the Romans referred to the land as either Judea or Galilee. That changed, however, after a Jewish uprising in the first half of the 2nd century, of which the Roman Emperor Hadrian brutally suppressed. And thus, as a complete sign of mockery and disrespect to the Jewish people, the Romans thus nicknamed the land Syria Palestina, in honor of Israel's two most historic biblical enemies, that being the Assyrians and the Philistines, and all in an attempt to minimize the Jewish attachment to the land. And thus, for centuries afterward, the area now called Palestine came into our language lexicon. However, keep in mind that this was in reference to a region and not a nation. And to give you an example of that point, this would be the equivalent of someone saying to someone from California, "Where are you from?" Of which that person could then respond, "I'm from the West Coast." And they would be just as truthful and just as correct if they had told that person they had come from California as well. For it's the West Coast that defines the region, but not the specific area of the region from which they've come. And so just as it is here, for Palestine did become known as a region over these 2 millennia while the Jews were scattered. But again, and listen closely, my friends, never one time did the nation of Palestine become a sovereign state, and that despite their self-proclamation in 1988, until 76 years after the rebirth of the nation of Israel in 1948. And with that said, 2 final quick things. It is the Quran itself that states that God gave the land to the Jewish people as their heritage. Thus, the Quran refers to the territory debated over today as either the Holy Land or the land of the children of Israel. And finally, the Palestinian flag has had many different iterations over the decades. But the one found in 1939 and seen before you here, as well as in countless dictionaries, actually has the very Jewish Star of David adorning it. And so if there was no Jewish heritage to the land, would they be adorning a Jewish symbol upon its flag? Now, as always, my friends, the Bible tells us to test the spirits, so please feel free to do your own research, of which I'm quite confident in telling you will only back up for you what I have shown you here today. And in future episodes of this series, I will cover for you even more facts by displacing the myths of the nation of Palestine and its people through its true history, of which you will therefore not want to miss my second episode in this series, of which makes the statement, the Jews have no claim to the land of Israel. And again, I will help you to separate the fact from the fiction of that one as well. And so if you like the program today, do me a favor, comment, like, and subscribe to help me get the good news of this message out to the masses. And with that said, my friends, until I see you next time, God bless.